Yeah, but Zach, you're always that good person. Even like listener, I've tried to get him to badmouth people in the industry, and he won't do it. I've asked for horrible stories and dirt. And,
none of this is true.
And
Patrick
profanity,
would never do that.
And he doesn't. Oh, that's a lie. People who know me know I want that right away. I'm like, yeah. So tell me, who's the biggest asshole you've worked with?
Visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics. Keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers.
Yes, indeed. This is Contest of Challengers, and I am your co-host, Patrick Brower. This episode is an in-depth interview with creator Zach Lehner from Junior Braves The Apocalypse, in part because he is signing at Challengers on Wednesday, August 8th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's right, all day. But also in part because he's a great guy and we don't get to talk to him often enough. However, that same day, we have Danielle Corsetto from Girls with Slingshots signing from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And this is just telling you this because she is not on this episode, and she will be in the store. She will have her slipcase set of Girls with Slingshots available, as well as a print only available at the Challenger signing, and all sorts of extra good stuff. So there's 2 reasons to come to the store Wednesday, August 8th. But for now, here's me and Zach.
Hello.
I was going to say, this is a special episode of Contest of Challengers. But first of all, they're all special.
That's true.
And I don't want to put any extra pressure on you. It doesn't have to be special.
I appreciate that.
It can be normal special for you.
You know, that's good, Patrick, because I'm a very sensitive animal.
I take that into consideration. So here we go. I am with Zach Lehner, the artist and co-creator of Junior Braves of the Apocalypse from Oni Press. Mm-hmm. And you guys have Volume 2 coming out.
That's correct, August 7th.
August 7th. And on that very day, you'll be hanging out with us.
Yep.
Here at Challengers.
From open till close.
From the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to learn, if you don't know this already, how boring it is on a New Comic Wednesday at the store. I mean, I'll be behind the computer working on the invoices for next week's books. Mm-hmm. Dal will be ringing people up, and you'll be in the front window area wondering why nobody's there. That's not true. Longtime listeners should remember you from... first of all, you've signed at the store 3 times so far?
Yes.
2 free comic book days.
Right.
And then
the
one first Junior Braves.
Yes, correct.
And during that first Junior Braves signing, you were inadvertently part of this podcast because I just sprung it on you because I think that at that point you were one of the best creators I've seen as far as pitching your work, and you have it down to a science, and you're real good at like getting your log line across and summing up the book, but also drawing people in and having conversation about it. And I can only imagine now, 2 years later, you're even better at it.
Well, we would all hope so.
Right? Well, at the time, I'm like, this guy's doing great, so I'm like, I want to record this as it's happening live to give people who aren't here, who foolishly weren't there, an idea of what it's like on your side of the table.
Sure.
And we are actually recording in the former Mr. Amazing Loans spot that was Cricket Wireless, then Mr. Amazing Loans, then the vape shop, because we wanted to be set far enough away from the street to not hear the traffic. Mm-hmm. But we're in a tiny room in the back, so it might be a little echoey.
Yeah. We've had some small detective adventures getting to this point, setting this up.
Yeah, like you, dear listener, don't know everything that goes into recording this. We're just in this drab room. It looks like part of an office that got vacated.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
More security, I would think, but it's got some USB cables on it.
There was this obnoxious humming noise that I mistook for air conditioning, HVAC humming through vents. So I turned it off, but the noise was still there. Mm-hmm. And Zach went exploring. It's weird because like when I'm talking to you, I'll look at you, but when I'm talking to the listener, I'm looking at the recorder as if that represents them.
Right,
like,
as if we're speaking to them.
Yeah, I should just be looking at you because you're the one who's here.
No, we should include them too.
But you know this part because you did it.
Right.
Zach found a server room full of modems and servers and security equipment that was causing the hum. And this building has this unit has been unoccupied since November 2016. So everything was still working and humming and making noises, and we just pulled wires until it stopped.
Here's hoping that we didn't just admit to like accidentally committing a federal fraud, crime or something.
I fully expect at some point like authorities to come in because we shut down somebody's heart monitor or.
God, I hope.
No. It's all.
I'm kidding.
It's not.
I'm kidding.
It's just. It's clearly just modems and servers, and we traced the wires as far as we could. It just seemed like it was security for this building itself, this unit, not the building.
Right.
The
whole thing just looks like something out of the Better Class of Spy movie.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like we just stumbled across like the hidden server for like a hacking ring that we didn't know about.
I mean, there's what looks like a security DVR unit and the ADT security box, which we have one, so I know what that looks like. But there's like 3 other mounted wall units that I don't know what they were.
With wires that like go places that like we can't like
that go into walls.
Right.
But there's so many wires, but most of them look like they come out somewhere in this unit and they don't like go upstairs or anything. And also there's a room dedicated in this building for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So nothing in here would go somewhere more important, but
it's really surreal. Like,
especially if it's been plugged in for the last 2 years.
Right.
Who's paying for this?
Exactly. So it's just, I'm sorry. Like, I've never said this. I've never referred to people as listeners before. I'm sorry, listeners.
Well, here's the trick. Just say listener.
Okay.
Because it's one person listening. It's not everybody's not listening as a group.
Got it.
It's like here's a pet peeve of mine when marketing people from publishers send out their PR to their list of contacts, and they always say, "Hey guys." It's not "Hey guys." It's "Hey one person. You're talking to me." I'm not reading this in a room full of my peers. I'm reading this one-on-one on my computer. I think it's a lot more personal to make it singular and not plural.
That's an interesting position.
I do know that there's some families that listen to this, so in that situation, there's listeners.
Sure.
But for the most part, like, do you listen to podcasts?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Do you listen in a group of people?
No.
You listen by yourself.
I mean, unless I'm trying to, like, low-key get them to listen to, so, like, you put it on in a public space to, like, convince, like, your friends to listen.
But traditionally, you're just listening, I don't know, headphones or something.
Right.
Yeah, so they're talking to you. They're not talking to a group of you. They're just talking to you.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, that's nobody cares, and nobody takes offense to it, but it's a thing that bothers me.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I try to get that across, but it's like getting people to put toilet paper on the roll, on the
facing the right way. Yeah. I hear you.
It's a battle that I'll just never win. So all of these things have a lot to do with comics, obviously.
Clearly.
Which is one of the cornerstones of Contest of Challengers.
Yes.
Getting right to the root, the heart of the conversation. So, Zach, let's go back in time a little bit.
Sure.
And since I did tell people how good you are at talking about your book, why don't you tell somebody who's perhaps listening who doesn't know what Junior Braves of the Apocalypse is,
Sure,
what it is?
So Junior Braves in the Apocalypse is a story about Boy Scouts and zombies. And I usually make an aside here that we can't actually call them Boy Scouts for obvious reasons.
It is a descriptor. It is not an official designation.
Right. So it's a story about Boy Scouts and zombies, and a bunch of kids head off to summer camp, and when they come back, their town's been overrun by ravenous undead monsters. All their families have been evacuated. Any remaining authority figures have kind of gone cuckoo bananas. So they have to use the skills they learned at camp to stay alive, and hopefully to find their families in this dangerous new world.
What's the rough age for the characters in the book?
So I like to say that it's for mature 10-year-olds on up.
Sure. But I was asking about the characters themselves.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
That's all right.
So it ranges. The youngest is 6.
Okay.
But he's not necessarily a POV character. The oldest, I believe, is 14.
Okay.
It's mostly 12. That's really where the sweet spot is.
Okay.
It's very, like, what we used to say is that, like, it's scary, it doesn't place a premium on violence, and that remains true. Book 2 coming out gets a bit scarier than Book 1 did. And it's not that Book 1 wasn't scary. Book 2 just gets a little bit more, that we have less to establish.
Sure.
You know,
you already know the world, you know
right.
the characters, now this is more the threat.
Right, so things get a little bit more frightening in Book 2, I hope, if I've done my job right.
Okay, sure. It is a black and white but toned book, right?
Correct. So,
and does it follow the same color toning as the first one, or are we changing tones per book?
Nope. Well, we are changing tones per book, is what I mean to say. So Book 1 was green, and that's kind of the color we ended up building the brand around, but now we're switching to blue in Book 2.
Okay.
And
is that because this is more depressing?
It's not. It's actually... Okay, so for the vast majority of the book, I would actually call it almost more uplifting, because you see the boys growing and trying to make, like... trying to build, like, something out of the rubble.
Okay.
There's some rough patches. I obviously don't want to spoil anything.
I mean, there have to be. They're Boy Scouts fighting zombies. I mean,
well, yeah, and there needs to be conflict.
Sure.
You know, like you wouldn't read the book if they weren't running from something. We actually ended up. We kind of did a toss up between red and blue. There's going to be an element that comes up at the end of this book, and will feature more prominently in the third regarding Red Rain. And so
the Peter Gabriel song, of course.
You'd have to ask Mike and Greg about that one. I'm not sure how specifically they were thinking of it, but they do like music jokes. There's at least one. There's at least one Morrissey joke in this book. We kind of had a debate about where we wanted to use red for that purpose, and we ended up going with blue because the subtitle of the book is Out of the Woods. They spend a lot of time. Like last time, they spent a lot of time in a town after leaving woods. Now they're trying to get away and traveling through back roads to do it. So they're under tree canopy a lot. Blue just felt more appropriate.
Sure. Mm-hmm. You referenced Mike and Greg, and those
yes. I should definitely talk about my collaborators. Mike and Greg are the writers of the book, who are the sweetest and most wonderful men you will ever meet. Those of you who are here in Chicago, where I'm based, and of course Patrick is, it's going to be harder to meet them because they both live out on the West Coast. But those of you who are out on the West Coast should absolutely take a chance to try and get to see them if you can. Greg is based around Seattle. Mike is based around LA. They're both up and down the coast at shows all the time.
Are they doing any signings specifically for the release as well?
Oh, they are, yeah. I can't tell you exactly what they are yet. They're still working it out with some of the folks at Oni. But yeah, absolutely. There's a whole signing schedule planned. I know that they will both be at Rose City Comic-Con. Mike is going to be at San Diego this coming weekend. I don't know when we're going to put this out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be this week. I want to make it a little bit closer to the book because I don't want people to listen to it and then get excited and then forget.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, we're doing this, what works for our schedules now, but it may be, because we're, 3 weeks away?
Yes.
Yeah, we may wait a little bit, like a week or two, so it's closer, so people can have enough time to get excited for it, but not forget about it.
Right. So
it's a precious line we have to balance for everything. You, as a creator, the cycle. There's three major cycles. There's the release of the project,
right?
The announcement of the project, when it's orderable,
yeah,
and then when it's out,
yeah.
And also you can sneak in like FOCs in there for retailers as well, which is a fourth one. So it's like you have to assume that you're starting from scratch each time,
right? It's they're one of the things that I learned after book one that I kind of already knew because people tell you, but it's interesting knowing it from experience, is that you do this thing and you put it out there and it the hype around it. It's not that it diminishes. It's just that people already know about it. You're only as good as it's not just that you're only as good as the last thing you did. It's that the last thing you did is the last time anybody I don't want to say cared because that sounds harsh.
I was gonna say thought about you, but that's equally as dark.
Kind of it's not it's not a malicious intent. It's just
Right.
that like this is an entertainment industry and people, you know, need new things to read. That's the point.
And it's also a fine line of getting people excited, which means you have to post and post and post.
Right.
But also bothering them.
Yeah.
You know, it takes repetition. There's statistics, and I'm going to make one up, so it's completely bogus, but it's similar that that's why so many radio commercials have the phone number listed like 8 times, because it'll take that long for you to respond to it. And it takes like seeing a commercial 42 times before you actually register that it's a product that you might care about. Just putting it out there doesn't mean anything. And so, like, I'm always annoyed by people that, when Twitter was a thing, which it really isn't anymore.
And thank God for that.
People would post things with the acronym ICYMI, in case you missed it, which is like, oh, this is a repost. You already posted about this. Or, like, they preface it with, hey, for you morning people, meaning, oh, I posted this last night.
Right.
And I always hated that, but you have to do things like that to get for people to see it. Yeah. I love that all these social media sites will give you statistics where it's like, how many people saw your post? Like, so you've got how many people follow you.
Right.
Then it'll show you how many people saw the post, which is maybe 5%, and then how many people engaged with it.
Yes.
And that's the real important number is how many people engage with it, and whether they be like, aside from clicking on it, what is engaging with, or like commenting or liking or whatever.
Right.
And none of that translates to buys or attendance at a thing or whatever. But you also have to worry about working on Volume 3 at the same time you're promoting Volume 2. And from what I've seen, you have a pretty full August.
Yes. I mean, there's just always a lot going on. In terms of trailing through that comment from start to finish.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't give you any chance of
No,
talking.
you're fine.
This guy just kept going.
No, you're fine. I was nodding along. Like that was all completely true. If you hadn't said it, I would have said it. But like following the through line. So in terms of promotion, one of the nice things about Braves, and one of the things I count myself lucky for, is that I'm part of a really big team that promotes it. There's me and Mike and Greg, and, you know, our engagement has to drive it because we're the faces.
Sure.
You know, and like if the face of the band isn't like being a face, it doesn't matter how good the guitarist is. But there's also this enormous team of people at Oni who are doing all this work, you know, from their head of their social media person, Melissa, who's amazing. There's our new editor, Desiree, who is like doing all this work. There's Brad Rooks.
Desiree edited me on something coming up for Oni.
Did she
something,
really?
Something very small, very small. And I will be hanging out with Brad in 2 weeks at Gen Con. Dal and I are running Oni's comic setup at Gen Con.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
And
guys.
in theory, Brad and I are getting bro tats that weekend. That was my idea.
Nice.
He's like, I got the room. Like, I don't.
You'll find something.
Yeah, something. Or not. I mean, I'm just looking for other things to do aside from game while I'm in, because I'm not a gamer.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway.
You got to occupy that time.
I love everybody at Oni, from
Right.
James down to Charlie to everyone you've mentioned. The only person I don't know is Joe, you know, the president.
I have met Joe in person once. And it was very. I know very little about him personally. I know that he's the guy who sends me my checks, and when I invoice him, he's always very polite. Sitting next to him was really strange.
Yeah.
Again, because he's the guy who signs your checks, right? So like, I was next to him, we were signing, and I was like, it was a show. I was engaging with people, and he's just like sitting over there doing his thing, and I'm like, I should really be talking to him, but I don't really know what to say because I know nothing about him.
Yeah, and I think he would rather have you do what you're doing.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't I've met him once. He's a nice guy. He's very handsome. I'll say that.
I'm not. I don't think I've ever seen him in person.
I don't think that shows are his thing.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true. He's definitely not going to be at Gen Con. It's just
Right.
Brad and Charlie.
Mm-hmm. So looping back.
So you have the whole team at Oni
Right.
behind
you know, and like and like with Mike and Greg, like Greg's wife Ann is amazing, and she's got her own like business selling stuff at shows on her own time, so she's a huge help too. So we have this huge, network of people, making this thing happen, which most people doing this kind of thing, like it's probably just you.
Yeah.
Or it's like maybe you and a couple of friends. So for us, that's this really huge help that's like makes it a lot easier and makes promoting it much less of a grind. I also I kind of staked out like libraries as like my thing pretty early in all of this. So the big show that I spend money to get to every year is ALA.
Which just happened in Nolans.
Yes, and I mean, I love ALA. It is one of my favorite big box shows, probably my very favorite big box show to go to, because it's very calm, it's very decompressed. Librarians are there and they're interested and they're enthusiastic.
Yeah, they're already interested.
Right. Anyway. I sing ALA's praises too much. I'm going to put that aside.
We'll circle back around to ALA.
Right. But so I chase after the librarians, and they're the ones who I'm kind of like, hey, I have this book. It's like a book that you need. It's laser targeted at boys who need something to read and aren't old enough to read like The Walking Dead or whatever yet. Yeah. So it's we hit this niche with libraries that makes it very, very easy to sell to them. And requires much less kind of chasing likes and chasing social media presence, because it's all about just getting it in front of them, and there's a million other ways to do that. So that's much more playing the network angle really than it is pushing a social media presence, so I don't have to be on all the time.
Sure. Let me ask you this: when you're talking to librarians one-on-one, is this to get them to buy your book from their distributor, or to buy direct from you or direct from Oni?
Depends on the situation.
But I mean, all of those things are possible?
Yes.
Because I talk to librarians on occasion, but we've never, we're willing to sell to libraries, we just have never set it up and organized it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of different stores have a lot of different ways that they do that. Mm-hmm. But we just haven't set on a path, and I wasn't sure how each library works, and if they can deal with a one-to-one buying structure. I think so if I'm selling to a librarian, that's one thing, right? And sometimes they'll buy it and then they'll put it in the library, because the libraries take donations all the time. Yeah. The same goes for for schools, actually. I sell to a lot of teachers in one way or another too, and that's so. I'll sell them a book, and they'll ask me to sign it to their class or to the students of X school, and then they'll put it in that library. Usually what they're doing is they're picking up the book, or remember it, trying to find a way to remember it so they can order it from from Oni, and they'll usually ask about Amazon, because everyone's using Amazon. But there's also Barnes and Noble still exists. All doomsday predictions to the contrary. Yeah, they're still around for now. Yeah, we have a local-ish one.
Mm-hmm. So they'll ask about booksellers. Where was I going with that? In terms of one of the places where, so I can't answer your question about the best way to sell directly to them, because after I've sold them the single copy, that usually becomes either the bookseller or Oni's problem.
Sure. But I mean, that's enough. You give them a taste.
Right, exactly.
Then,
Mm-hmm. And then what I hear all the time is that the books keep getting stolen. And I'm good.
That's a huge compliment,
right.
Really.
Well, it's a huge compliment, and it's buy more. Yeah. Keep that going. I don't want to encourage anyone to steal things from libraries. That is the last thing I want to encourage. Sure. But when that happens, I do kind of go to this place where it's that's a sale. It kind of becomes this thing where it's it's this weird, less trackable back end that maintains the popularity of the book, because kids are going to be in libraries anyway for any number of reasons, but also kind of brings people out into the light, where they come out and they're oh, I read this, I like this, what else have you got? Who else can you send me to? Where else can I go? Yeah. I know where I think I had a point there. I'm not sure where I was going.
I think you got it. Yeah. And you also you teach classes at libraries and
at schools. Yes. Yeah. And that, I mean, if I'm being honest, that's more of a, like, I think of that more as sort of a volunteer effort than anything.
Yeah.
You know, like it started out as a promotional thing. And I still use it that way sometimes. But it's mostly about, like, I like teaching. I like teaching people about visual communication. I like using words like semiotics in front of teenagers and finding a way to make them pay attention. So it's something that but it's not my profession. It's not how I've ever made my living. So it's just a way to kind of do something that I like, that I feel does something positive, gets kids engaged. God, I sound so old.
I don't think so at all.
Good. You know, and like hopefully, I don't know, like I think of this stuff as being like also like a genuinely usable skill on some level. Like not everyone's going to, like, comics is a really weird, like, profession that's hard to break into and it's awkward and not everyone's going to get there, and that's fine. But there's a lot of opportunity out there for people who understand how to use visual information and how to impart it if they're like creative with it. So there's a part of me that's kind of like, I don't know if this will ever help, but maybe it does, because, you know,
at the very least it could help people understand how to do comics for themselves.
Right.
And who wouldn't relish that type of a creative output, whether they're looking for it or not, or whether they know how beneficial it can be or not.
There's a phrase that I'm sort of low-key, not stealing, because I always credit him, but that I'm like repeating from Ronell, the comics teacher, which is comics stand for access. And he used that phrase when I was on a panel with him and some other folks at C2E2 this year.
Okay.
And that really stuck with me, is this feeling that, like, this is something that anyone can do. That doesn't mean everyone's going to do it well the first time.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to get a publishing deal out of it.
Right.
But
everyone knows how to read, or at least, like, you hope that a lot of people know how to read. Everyone understands how images work, and everyone understands on some level how language works. So as long as you've spent some time in primary education, this is something you can do. And every voice is valuable.
Yeah.
So there's sort of that like, that is a thing that kind of helps me feel good when I go to bed.
I think every child draws at some point.
I think so.
It's just a matter of keeping with it, or
if you don't
want to,
and
you don't have to.
Yeah, and if you don't, like, you can come back to it later. Like, I keep thinking of I can never remember her name, but like the webcomic Lackadaisy Cats.
Okay.
Like that, have you ever seen that?
It's not ringing a bell, no.
Okay. Like, it is, I don't even know if it's still up, it's been years. But it is gorgeously illustrated to a degree that is insulting when you realize that this woman has never studied art in her life. She was an engineering major. She does the whole thing with a mechanical pencil.
Oh, wow.
It's like it's painted. It's ridiculous. So it's one of those things where it's like you can't predict who's going to, like, be able to make this work, when they'll make it work. It's all kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
But encouraging people to try and to, like, say something and to find a way to feel heard is always, like, it's not going to, like, save lives, but maybe it saves part of someone's soul.
Yeah, I mean that's equally as important. I mean, sure, it's not, if someone's choking to death, it's not going to save them. But you said it best. Right now, it can save part of their soul, which is,
you hope so.
Wonderful.
You know, every little bit you hope helps.
Yeah.
So, wow, this is getting a lot deeper than I expected.
Well, I mean, I was just going to say that, like, people on the surface read comics for entertainment,
right,
but it's really for enrichment and to feel good about, you know, maybe themselves, maybe the world, but just to, it's not just a passage of time. You feel like it's valuable and it's doing something for you.
Right.
I mean, I want to say that I learned a lot of morality growing up reading superhero comics. It wasn't, you and I were talking about, before we started recording, about how comics that teach without telling you they're teaching are amazing.
They are.
Like, there's a lot of people that want to have textbook comics, which is a very admirable idea, but it's hard to get a kid to pick that up and to engage with it like a normal superhero comic would, because that's more exciting. But if you could teach them without them knowing they're being taught, and the only I guess, exception to this is the current run of science comics.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, sell so well for us, and they're so great. And I've heard so many parents who have these stories of their kids just retaining like high school level knowledge from reading these comics.
Yeah.
Because they're presented in a way that's fun and entertaining, and even though they're called science comics, it's not lectury.
Right.
It's still entertainment.
It's a really hard line to walk, but when you see it done well, it's extremely impressive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just feel like entertainment means something different to everybody, and there is so much of it around now, it's easy to feel a little lost. The thing that I, like, you know, you keep coming back to, like, those kind of tent poles that you build, like, your worldview around. And, you know, a lot of people talk about Calvin and Hobbes a lot, and God knows I do. But the thing that I've come to realize is that I learned a lot from Calvin and Hobbes over the years about kind of how I ended up seeing the world and what I believed was right and wrong. But the other thing that it did that was really important was make me feel welcome. Like, you know, when I was a kid, I was a lot like Calvin. And I think a lot more kids are than we realize. And look, I know a lot of people who don't see any of themselves in Calvin for any number of reasons, and they have other things that did this for them, and that has incredible value. The important thing, and the thing that I think, like, I'm starting to strive for and see as, like, the thing that really matters to me as I move forward with, like, what I want to do in this field, is find ways to make people feel welcome and feel like they aren't alone. Because when you're a kid, you almost always feel alone.
Absolutely.
You know, even when everybody is standing next to you, the world is so big and so scary, and there is so much pressure on you to act a certain way for so many different reasons and in so many different ways. To feel like somebody else has been there. Not in, like, a preachy way, not in a, like, you know, like, hand on the shoulder, like, I've been there, kid.
Not in a it'll get better way.
Right. But in a, like, no, this is real, and this is happening, and this has happened to other people. You aren't crazy, and you aren't, like, it's not wrong for you to wonder why you're doing homework, or for you to wonder why people are mean, or for you to feel like you connect more with an imaginary world than with the world around you. Like, or any number, like, I'm picking all those from Calvin and Hobbes, but, like, any number of other, like, affirmations of, like, no, you aren't wrong. Like, it is okay to feel scared and out of place and to not always feel like people understand you. We ended up going to a place where I'm getting really emotional about this.
But I mean, that's good. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that kind of thought is evident in what you're doing now.
I hope so.
And you say it's where you want to go, but I mean, maybe you're there. Maybe this is part of it.
Well, and I mean, as we know, I don't actually write the book. I do, like, Mike and Greg give me a lot more latitude than I probably deserve. But, like, the characters are theirs. And they really, you know, they're the ones who are really, they're the ones who pilot the ship this time. But I get, in small ways, to see the looks on kids' faces when they come up after reading the book and talk about how good it's made them feel for whatever reason. And it feels good to be a part of that, for sure.
Okay, so we just took a little break, and we each read the complete Calvin and Hobbes start to finish, just to catch everybody up, everybody being ourselves up on what was happening. And see, now you hear the trucks go by. You hear that? Yeah.
Damn it. All right,
man.
hang on.
Close the anchor one and leave the back. Yeah, we're trying to play with the
levels, I think, is the term.
Yeah, we're trying to reduce the echo from this room, but I don't know. It's coming out fine. What we have podcast gold is what we have.
Sure.
But also, we just realized at the start of the episode we were talking about the signing date, and it's Wednesday the 8th of August.
Right. I said 7th, and that's me being confused because I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Yeah, but like I mentioned before, like you have, like you're doing signings and lectures and things everywhere.
Just about everywhere, yeah. There's a couple of places I'm still kind of coming around knocking.
Yeah.
Trying to get them.
But I mean, you've been very proactive in, like, literally setting up your own tour.
Trying to. I mean, tour makes it sound like I'm going on the road, and what I'm really doing is trolling around Chicago.
That's still technically a tour,
I guess.
Yeah.
It's
not a world tour. It's just a local tour.
Yeah, and I don't know. I want to do my I always want to do my part with this stuff because as we kind of touched on a bit earlier, the promotional stuff isn't entirely my bag. I do the best I can at it, but it's Greg in particular, but Mike too, are much more this is much more their thing. I'm a bit more I just kind of want to sit down and do my work, and it's a necessity, so you have to do it. You can't make excuses, but a lot of the time, because of how wrapped up in the work I get, they kind of have to shoulder a lot of that burden. So now, while we're prepping for this, and while there's a bit of a window between book 2 and 3, I want to really step up and do what I can to push this rock down the road.
It's funny to hear you say that because I, of course, don't know them and only know you, and I see how much work you do at this.
Nah.
So I see, and like I said before, I think you're one of the better people at. I was going to say networking, but not networking. Networking with fans, with potential readers.
I try to. I mean, I also, we've been pretty real so far today, so I'll be straight. I also just don't really like big shows.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, it's way too easy to get lost in one of those.
Yeah, and I just I'm not much of a crowd person.
Yeah.
To be clear, listener, if you walk up to me at a big show, I'm not mad or upset. I'm glad to see you. I promise. But it's just a whole thing. It takes up all this time. If you're lucky, you're you're driving home at the end of the night and getting in bed at 2 a.m. If you're not lucky, you're out of town, and it's just a lot of time and money invested for kind of at times an uncertain payback.
Well, I think that fans are more excited at smaller shows because they're not overwhelmed with, who else is here? Who am I going to see next? Mm-hmm. And I know when I go through Artist Alley anywhere, I walk that line of looking for brand new things, but I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want to stop and talk to you as a creator if I don't buy your book.
Right.
And I don't want to find out if, I don't want to stop and talk to you and be like, oh, I don't want this.
Yeah.
Walk away.
And, as a creator, I appreciate that attitude.
But that means I will walk with, blinders on. Yeah. I'm only looking out of my periphery to see, this looks interesting.
Right.
And, if I stop and talk to you, I'm going to buy something. Or you are a friend of mine I'm saying hi to.
Yeah.
I've told the story numerous times, but Terry Moore from Strangers of Paradise and Rachel Rising and Echo and Motor Girl, big fan of his, read everything he's ever done, started Strangers of Paradise from issue 1 from Antarctic Press, and he was at C2E2, this year, but also last year and the year before. Mm-hmm. And I had gotten a sketch from him at Dallas Fantasy Fair in '94. Mm-hmm. And I just stopped at his table to say, hey, I've seen you before. I love your stuff. But even that, I've bought everything he's ever done, but that doesn't make up for his expenses at C2E2.
Right.
And so I just said hi and left right away because I don't want to take up somebody else's time who could be buying, or also I don't want to make him think that he can make a sale because. I have everything.
Because you already own everything. Yeah. What's he going to sell you?
Right. And I'm not just going to buy. Oh, do you have a hat? I'll buy a hat. I don't think he had a hat. Plus, I wouldn't want a Strangers in Paradise hat. That's not what Strangers in Paradise is to me, or whatever.
Right.
So it's a delicate balance, and I'm sure people would if somebody comes up to you at a show and says, "Hey, let's say when you were pitching Volume 1, hey, I bought this at the last show. I think it's great." Mm-hmm. I'm sure you'd like that.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't pay for your being at that show.
Right. There isn't there's just always an economic edge to this stuff that if I'm doing my job right, or if you're doing your job right, or if anyone trying to do this as a business is doing their job right, isn't something that a lot of people see because you don't want to put pressure on anybody.
Right.
But it's also this kind of thing that informs a lot of how you feel about what you're doing. And this is one of those things where it's just shows are it's not even it's the money, but it's also the exhaustion afterwards when you aren't getting making the money that you need.
Yeah. And while people have an interaction with you, you have hopefully dozens of those interactions over the course of the day, and it has to be fresh and original for everybody.
Right.
You don't want anybody walking away being like, oh, that guy was kind of a jerk. And you're like, yeah, but I just talked to 400 people today or whatever. That's not their problem. They didn't know that.
Well, and I also feel a lot of... I feel a lot of responsibility to be like a good person in front of people, because a lot of the people who come to me are like bringing up like kids who are very, very shy, because they're at that age. And like before we started recording, you and I talked about like one of my other big influences, which is Terry Pratchett. And I told you about how I've met Terry Pratchett several times before he passed, and I could barely get a word out each time. And it mattered that, like, even though I was part of this huge line of people coming to see him, he was kind and civil and friendly. And
you remember those meetings for the rest of your life.
Right.
He may not, but that's not the point. The point is you remember it.
And I'm nowhere near where Terry Pratchett is in like notoriety, and I probably never will be. But it's just one of those things where like you try to wake up every day and like be a good person, and that manifests in the little things as much as the big things. So when you go to this stuff, even if you're sick, which I almost always am when I go to a show.
I mean, shows make you sick, too.
Right, exactly. Or even if you're like, even if you're tired, or even if like there's something in your personal life you're freaking out about, like you have to play that role. You have to be that good person because you're a public figure now. And
yeah, but Zach, you're always that good person. Even like listener, I've tried to get him to badmouth people in the industry, and he won't do it. I've asked for horrible stories and dirt. And
none of this is true.
And
Patrick
profanity,
would never do that.
And he doesn't. Oh, that's a lie. People who know me know that's. I want that right away. I'm like, yeah. So tell me, who's the biggest asshole you've worked with? No,
I don't work with assholes.
You and I did a show, not together, but we were at the same show at the Humboldt Park Library.
Yeah.
And I was there for Challengers. You were there for you.
Yes.
And we were at tables next to each other. Mm-hmm. And it was a superhero comic book themed day they were doing.
Right.
And there were some other, like Quimby's was there. One or two other tables? I don't know.
Yeah,
for sure.
They were around the corner from us.
Yeah,
so we didn't really interact.
Yeah, it was me, you, Quimby's around the corner, and then...
I feel like it might have been Max Baer, but I could be inventing that. Like, he and I didn't know each other at the time.
Yeah, I didn't know him that well either, but he was at this
Free Comic Day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. That'd be funny if it was. Just another small world thing.
Right.
But, so, I mean, I got to watch you interact with people all day, which obviously I've seen before, but it was one of those weird things, because whenever a school or a library asks us,
sure,
we'll do it. And most of the time, it's just setting up a table and telling people we're there. Yeah. And like giving out bookmarks or stickers or whatever we have and trying to draw people to the store.
Right.
And we always give out free comic book coupons that people never bring back.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 hours of, hey, here's the stores in your neighborhood. Come check it out. But this one, we were allowed to sell stuff at. Mm-hmm. And so our table, my table was our beating Challengers, not you and I, because we had separate tables.
Yes.
Like the front row was giveaway, leftover free comic book day stuff, and the back 3 rows were things that were for sale, which was a little bit difficult to get across. But it was a full like 5 or 6 hour show as opposed to like a 2 hour school presentation.
Right.
With the same result. Like I think you sold more books than I did, but like we each sold a handful of books.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, you're like, we're doing this to get the word out and to let people know. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you're like, am I just wasting my time? Man, like, I don't know what this is. Like, having you at that show, which I didn't know you were going to be there, made the day worthwhile.
I appreciate that. And the same goes the other way.
We had fun because of it. But like, if you weren't there, I would have been bored out of my mind. Mm-hmm. And you did leave me to teach a couple classes, so...
Yeah, so you were bored for a little bit.
For a little bit, yeah. But yeah, it's I feel like those instances are a lot like Artist Alley. Like when Challengers was brand new, we did Wizard World for the first 2 years, just set up an Artist Alley as letting people get to know. We weren't really selling stuff.
Right.
We were just getting the word out.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell if that ever works.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I guess if we're being really honest here today, like, it's hard to tell how much any of this ever works at a certain point. Like, on my end, like, I don't want to depress you listening to this, listener. Wow, that's a sentence. But
I appreciate the spoiler you give, like the warning, like, all right.
But, like, I mean, the reality is that, like, I'm starting to get to a point where I have, like, something that sort of counts as fame, I guess. Like, sort of.
Yeah.
Not that that's necessarily what I want, but, like, it's there. But, I mean, this still doesn't make me enough money to live.
Oh, right, yeah, I mean...
by a country mile.
Same thing with the store.
Right, like, you know, I make my money, like, doing freelance, like, mostly freelance production work for, like, publishing companies. And that's kind of just the way things go. So, when, like, the big question becomes, every time you go to one of these shows, like, how much of your life do you have to give away to this passion so that, like, you know, so that you feel fulfilled by it, and maybe someday you make something out of it, so that you can go home and, like, get up and go and, like, make rent and buy groceries. And it's a balancing act, and that's the biggest, that especially since book one came out. I'm sorry, you guys keep hearing me pop my water here.
I think that's the only time they're going to have heard it. I don't think the other ones were that loud.
Okay.
But with the echo, it sounds like a gunshot.
Well, you guys need to know that that's happening like every 5 seconds.
You could just put it on the table. Like, here, use this priority mail envelope that I'm using.
All right.
We found a stack of, we found a lot of interesting things in this little alcove we're in, including a box or a bundle of priority mail boxes and envelopes. So I was, Zach has water, I have iced tea, and I was using the priority mail envelope as my coaster.
I'm just surprised we haven't found, like, some weird, forgotten magical artifact in here.
I was expecting rat skeletons.
You know,
however, did you see the basketball?
I did. There's like an old black Spalding NBA in here,
covered in dust.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey. Well, since we're doing this, let's see what this is. It is clearly
it's a picture of some kind. Oh, it's a mirror.
Oh,
who's that jerk?
Can you see, like, is it like the Harry Potter mirror where you see your fondest wish?
No. I mean, not unless my fondest wish is me, which I'm pretty sure isn't anyone's fondest wish. There's a skull where my face should be, though.
Oh, that's fine. That's not right. I guess it's good that it's facing the opposite direction, because I walked in and saw that and be like, who's that?
Right.
And does he want to fight?
Right. Like a dog.
Yeah.
You just immediately start, like, putting your hackles up. I don't remember where we were. I think I was saying something about, like, just the financial reality of doing this.
Well, since you brought up your freelance career, why don't you give people a way to contact you in case anybody who's listening is interested?
Sure. Well, but, like, I use the same email for my normal stuff, so...
Well, what, just social media stuff?
Sure. So, I am rarely posting anything on Twitter, but if you hit me up there, which is... See, I'm so bad at this that I don't even remember.
You have to look it up. That's kind of great.
I know.
Are you on Instagram?
I am, and there I am at Lehner Zach, and that's probably where I'm most...
Spell it.
Good call. LEHNERZACH.
Do you have a Facebook art page?
I do. Hang on, I'm looping back to Twitter.
Okay.
That's at Z Lehner, so ZLEHNER.
Even though we just told everyone that Twitter's dead.
Right, but, like... If people message me on there, I do get a notification and see it, even if I'm almost never on there.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the Facebook page, let's see here.
There's a Junior Braves page too, right?
There is, and if you just Google Junior Braves, you'll get there. But in terms of, like, my personal stuff, which I really should put more on this, I tend to just, like, throw things up on my, like, human being page.
Or you should at least make a Gmail address for... inquiries, so you're not giving this same email address that your grandma has.
I should. You know what the part of the problem is that I put the cart before the horse, and I, like, made, like, little fan business cards that only have, like, the Twitter and the Instagram on them.
Yeah.
And, like, then I have to, like, write down the email every time. And, like, years later I was like, wait, I could have just made another friggin' email account. Like, it's not rocket surgery, Zach. Anyway, the Facebook page is Zach Lehner Arts. So it's ZACHLEHNERARTS.
Okay. And now that we've said this, like, you also have to start worrying about book 3.
Right.
Is book 3 written?
Well, it is very close to being written.
Okay.
One of the things that our new editor, Desiree, we used to be edited by Charlie Chu, and we are forever grateful to him. But he moved on to, bigger and better things at Oni, and Desiree came in to, pinch hit and take over. One of the things that she's got us focusing on is a bit of a rewrite of Book 3, where we're introducing some characters that we're very excited about a bit sooner.
Okay.
And I don't want to make that I'm going to save the details on that.
Of course.
But so the short answer is we are in the middle of rewrites.
Just tell us how Book 2 ends first, then we can figure it out.
I cannot do that. Book 2, if I say one thing promotional in this conversation about Book 2, it's that if you are a fan of what came out in Book 1, there are some titanic shifts at the end of Book 2.
Okay. All right.
Some really big things, especially... I cannot tell you how proud I am of the last pages of Book 2. They are that is the most emotional moment I've ever had an opportunity to draw.
So far.
That's true. But right now, I'm still kind of crowing about it. There's a lot in Book 2 that I'm proud of. And on a technical level, there's probably parts of it that are better than those pages. But there's no part of the story that has more of an emotional kind of core to it than the last 10 pages of Book 2.
Oh wow.
It's if you have had any interest in this series up until now, I really hope that you get a chance to read it and go over what happens there, because I don't know, I think it's really going to knock your socks off.
Would you encourage a reread of Volume 1 right before reading Volume 2?
Sure, always.
And one of the fun things is that at the same time Volume 2 comes out, first of all, it's being offered in hardcover and softcover.
Yes, I haven't even talked about that.
And Volume 1 is coming out in softcover at the same time.
Yes, so we're re-releasing all of it. There's a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes that, you guys don't care about. We're switching from, direct market to book market, which... serves us much better in terms of what we are and the people we usually sell to. And one of the results of that, and of Oni's distribution move, is that we're releasing these soft covers to make things more affordable. And I want to take a second aside here, and I think the last time I was on the show, I talked about this young lady too, but Hillary, who is the designer at Oni, and who I think I tend to sing her praises probably more than, not more, she deserves every bit of praise she gets, but I sing her praises a lot. She really knocked all of these out of the park. And I was ready for the soft covers to look comparatively cheap when put next to the hard covers, because that's just what you expect. But they are absolutely beautiful. And it's not some of that is me, but I've worked in book design on stuff for kids before.
Yeah.
I've done Hillary's job on other properties, and I got to tell you, these things look phenomenal. They are something you would be proud to have on your shelf.
Yeah, it's a very standard thing in the industry now to offer soft cover and hard cover at the same time. Mm-hmm. And it made us really think of our orders for 2, because everything we had for number 1 so far, and still now to this day, is hardcover. Right. So we want to make sure everything matches at the same time. Bye, Dal.
Goodbye. What is this? What did I walk into?
This is our this is our new wrestling podcast.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we were talking about G1 from last weekend.
This is Beat the Challenger, the wrestling podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Zach and I already talked about our favorite matches from G1, but what was yours?
Wow, favorite match from G1. It's tough to go against any Will Ospreay match.
Right?
That right there.
Yeah.
Wasn't my favorite one he's ever been in. It's certainly not even my favorite this year. But a solid match, for sure.
How bad did you feel for Cody when the table didn't break on that table spot?
Incredibly bad. Incredibly hurt.
Yeah.
There were a few moves in that match where I'm no. Yeah, probably.
And by the way, I've learned since then, Firing Squad, it's still Bullet Club. That's not Firing Squad only comes out when they need to put somebody in line, but they are still Bullet Club.
So what's the hierarchy for Bullet Club? Firing Squad is...
The 3 Tongas.
They're at the top of the...
They are the new leaders, in their opinion. That's what.
Yeah. Go on.
And then everybody else beneath it, but they're bringing order to the Bullet Club. They're not trying to. They're trying to unite as opposed to divide.
Right.
By beating everybody up. There's too many petty side things and
Too many side things says the new side faction of the Bullet Club.
No, they're not a faction. They are the Bullet Club. No, they're the Bullet Club.
Branded merchandise.
Yeah, but anyway, this is all stuff Zach and I previously covered earlier in this
Fantastic.
conversation.
Well, I don't want to cover the same ground. It's boring for you two, so I'll let you get back to your wrestling podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tell. You must be great at poker.
I don't know how to play. I have no idea how to play. Or do I?
There you go.
No, I don't.
I actually don't either.
I could play, I don't know how to play Texas Hold'em or anything like that. I know, 5-card stud or 7-card stud or things like that, or rummy. But
sure. My
grandma and grandpa played pinochle every night. I have no idea what that is.
Is that a card game? I assumed it was similar to marbles, but with pigs nuts.
Yeah, right. No, it is a card game or bridge. I don't know how to play bridge.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I knew how to play Texas Hold'em for a couple of weeks in high school because, I also was a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle, for whatever that matters.
Well, it adds credibility to your book,
I guess. I went to there's this famous camping ground, the Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico, and so we went on this 2-week backpacking trip there, and one of the guys taught all of us how to play Texas Hold'em, and so I knew then, and I was really good at it,
yeah,
because I was a really good liar, which is not a skill I kept, unfortunately, and then
I don't know, is storytelling a form of lying?
I guess, but
let's just it's not lying. Lying implies intent to deceive. This is just intent to entertain. Yeah.
But a couple of years ago, at my last full-time job where I was a children's book designer, which is a very female-dominated field, a couple of the old guard guys had this regular poker game. And they would, a couple times they invited me out, and I came out, which, I couldn't play. And this is going to get not racy, but it involves alcohol, so I want to say that up front. So, and I'm not a big drinker. Every, I've got 3 crazy stories involving alcohol, and every one of them involves me not knowing my limits.
Hence the crazy part.
Right. And so this is one of them.
Never crazy if you know your limit.
Right. This is one of them. This is one of the 3 times when I haven't said, no, I don't drink like that. So, I was out with these guys at this, at one of their houses who was, sort of my boss, but not my boss.
Okay.
All very nice people. But also, dudes, right? There's, a drum set down there and, a bar. And,
so you're in a man cave to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're, they're all, some of them are smoking cigars. And they've got, really nice whiskey. And they're just, tossing it back. And I don't know how to play poker. So the way they decide to train me is, fraud, toss a kid into a pond type stuff.
Yeah.
Every time.
Sink or swim.
Right. And their method for that, their tough love ideology or idea is every time I fold when I could check, they made me take a shot.
Okay.
Right? And I wasn't by the time they'd done that the first time, I wasn't fast enough to get my hand over the glass. So they'd they'd already have poured it and my hand would be sluggishly moving out no. So I was really bad and it was just, I made a real fool of myself that night because I didn't know how to play poker and I wasn't used to being in man's man situations. So I just kept on doing doofier and doofier things because I was I didn't know how to say in man speak, stop.
Yeah, you're young. You were young. I mean,
that's true.
It's a life experience right there.
It's true, and it makes.
I bet everybody had a good time.
It did, and it made a fun. It makes.
You weren't driving.
Well, no, that's true. I was
so there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm skipping some of the gorier details.
That's fine.
But it was. I don't know. It did make a good story. It's just one of those examples of those times when knowing how to play poker is surprisingly important.
I don't know. I had some friends in high school who would play cards and I get together, but it was pre-Texas Hold'em. It wasn't, and it was more of a hangout thing than it was a play cards thing, which honestly most things in life are. It's like I'm not here for this experience. I'm here for
the people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like that's comic conventions too.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that, like, so we were talking about Artist Alley and we were talking also about pitches. And at ALA, I was next to Conor McCreary. I always try to, like sometimes in Artist Alley, I'll, bring candy.
Sure.
And, you've seen me do that.
Yeah.
I'll, kind of, stroll around and, toss it at people just to, because I want to start conversations and I want to be friendly. So I was next to Connor, and Connor and Mike actually know each other, but I'd never met him. So we started talking, and you want to talk about a from the table pitch. Connor makes a performance out of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting to watch. It's a form, right? It's he has a template that he uses every time.
Sure.
So the book he's pitching is Kill Shakespeare. So and he has a bit of a theater background. So he gets up and he gets really declarative. He's standing and he's moving his body and he's speaking from his chest and he's we come to praise the bard, not to bury him. Sorry folks, we're hearing a bumping sound.
Somebody wondering why their power's out.
Could be. Oh boy.
That sounds like it's coming from the lobby.
Yeah. Anyway, so I see that when I'm pitching from the table, I'm usually I'm proud that people think I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I think partially because of your influence, I was on a panel about pitching once a few years ago. But I'm also I'm also in pursuit of making that connection very intimate, which means it's less about hawking and more about just kind of being hey, come over here, let's talk.
Yeah.
Whereas
Connor is in tights, holding a skull.
Right.
Flowering the English, the forsooths, and
exactly
Shakespearean.
It's much more of a he is getting up there and
giving a royal proclamation.
Yeah, he's performing, and it's actually really fun to sit next to and watch because people do get drawn in.
Sure.
He makes a spectacle out of it, and people pay attention, and I'm just kind of sitting next to it, hey, when you're done, come over here, let's have a chat. I'm. Just trying to get people to sit and have a conversation, but he is he's making himself part of the experience. It's really interesting to see the different ways people do this stuff.
I think that it's a skill. It's a learned skill.
Yeah.
And so many creators don't know it's a thing that they have to do, and they have a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
And literally, what I used to do, and I don't anymore because I found out it seems like it's kind of rude, is I would walk up to somebody who had a book that I thought looked neat from my peripheral glance, and I'd just say, "Hey, why should I buy your book?"
Right.
Which is me generally saying, "Tell me about your book," but it comes across as, "Why should I buy your book?"
Right.
Yeah. So then I would change it to, "Hey, tell me about your book." But I wanted to give them the opportunity to sell it to me.
Yes.
But I do think that creators, when they're selling their own work, have a responsibility to know how to pitch it and to not waste their time or the potential buyer's time.
Right.
And I'm not saying it has to be rehearsed, because if it sounds too rehearsed, it sounds fake.
Yeah.
But it has to sound genuine, but I should also be able to see your passion.
Yeah.
And, God, I tell you, I say this all the time, but Dal is the best at taking a book and saying, "Oh, it's this meets this." Now, Junior Braves has the
it's
great
in the title. It's in the title.
Yeah, but I know a lot of creators or musicians, I think that, well, on my own thing, I'm not that. But people need to say it. It's a way to get someone to say, "Oh, I like these two things."
Right.
Then I'll like your book.
Right.
No one is saying that you're ripping it off or it's derivative, but you need something that somebody can recognize or relate to.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that that's as much an easy shorthand. It's a cheat code.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing without it, but if it doesn't come naturally to you, then that's the easiest way to do it. And I think one of the issues here is that like a lot of people get into this because they want to make entertainment, but they don't want to deal with people.
Right.
And like I definitely count myself in that. Like,
well, camp. You work in a vacuum. You sit in a studio all day and all night. You only and consult with human beings outside of your publishers and your co-creators.
Right.
When you're out getting a coffee or I don't know, doing laundry or whatever.
Right.
It's a rare, but you're also you spent 2 years doing volume 2?
Yeah.
And this is a point where 2 years of your life where nobody has seen what this is yet.
True.
And now this is the birthing point.
Yes.
Where you get to say, hey, look what this is the last 2 years of my life, while you're looking ahead to the next year of your life, worrying about the next thing you have to do. And yeah, so I mean, like, we all live in a vacuum. Like, there's this week, when we're recording this week, there are so many great books that came out.
Very true.
That I sat Tuesday night reading a stack of books, and She Could Fly from Dark Horse.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, it had a good buzz, but I was blown away by how good it is. And I don't even watch *Halt and Catch Fire*. Nancy Drew #2, excellent. Nick Spencer Spider-Man, totally different than what's come on before. Almost a little bit abrasive with how many major changes there are. Still really good.
Right.
The first issue Superman by Bendis. I mean,
which I'm really curious about.
I liked it a lot. And Man of Steel I thought was really good, but this is like, no, he's putting his flag down. He's claiming this book.
Yeah.
But there were other books that I read that caught me off guard. So anyway, there are so many great books out that, first of all, it's hard for me to tell everybody who comes in how great the books are.
Right.
Because there's so many of them. But secondly, it's a thing where, like, hey, somebody's new in the store, and I pitch them on a book. I always say, hey, come back and tell me what you think.
Yes.
They almost never do.
Sure.
So it's not the same as you being isolated creating, but even I feel, and I deal with people all day, but I still feel cut off from, like, am I really resonating?
Well, because it's not like a movie, where you're in a theater with a bunch of people. Like, I went to see Solo, and it was like on opening night, and it was this moment, because regardless of what you think of the movie, when Chewie got into the pilot seat next to Han, there was applause. Like, it was part of, like, I was there for a moment with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
That does not happen here.
Right, because, like, listening to podcasts, reading graphic novels is a singular experience.
Right. It's like the connect. What is Will Eisner said something in some book? It's a connection between the creator and the reader. Those are the only two people who are having any kind of conversation. Like, it's not a shared experience except in that one very intimate way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but at the same time, like, so you get into it because you want to make things and be a part of something, but like maybe people make you nervous, or maybe like you think you don't like people. Most people like people and think they don't. Or at least that's what I believe. Or like, you just don't deal super well with crowds. But what you find out as you pursue it is that you can't do it without having people skills. It does not work. If you're lucky, and I count myself here, I was very lucky to realize partway through all of this that I actually really like people. Like, when I was a kid and I got into this, like, there would be all these warnings of, like, it's really lonely. And I was like, thank God. Like, I don't want to be near anybody. Just leave me alone and let me do my thing. I was very misanthropic as a child.
Yeah.
And as I've grown up, like, because I did this, I had the opportunity to learn that I actually really enjoy people and I enjoy getting to know them. And I get to channel that when I go to shows and when I pitch. That's not going to be true for everybody. So if this is something that you want to do or that you want to be part of, but it doesn't like interacting with people in that way doesn't come as naturally to you, things like the X meets Y, or the like just finding like quick, easy single sentences, log lines to just pitch that book, that's how you get by. Because you can't do this without talking to someone.
That's true.
I got preachy there, but it's just like Kel McDonald is a good example of this. Like, and if you aren't listening to Dirty Old Ladies, by the way, you should. which is another podcast that is excellent, and Spike Troutman's on it too, and a lot of other people who are great. But like, I've sat next to Kel at shows, and Kel is not a people person. She is not I like Kel very much, but I never really understand what she's thinking in the moment, so I can't say whether or not she likes people. But you get the sense next to her, and she would tell you this herself, that she has very low patience, because she does. So when people walk up, she has one sentence. Like her Misfits of Avalon series, it's just, this is a book about magical girls who are jerks. That's the sentence. And it tells you nothing about the book, by the way. It's just, this is the general content of this story.
But I think it's a great sentence to gauge if somebody wants to pick it up or walk away.
Right. And then she's just like, if people are just wandering by, she'll just say, you should buy some books. Like, she is there to make sales.
Yep.
I'm there to make friends because that's the kind of person I am. She's not. She's there to make money.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Are you really? Are you there to make acquaintances? Or are you there to make friends? Like, people that you are going to hang out with in your free time and grab a drink with or get dinner with. Is that the level of commitment you're looking for?
Depends.
Or are you okay? I'm not challenging you.
No,
I'm
it's okay.
I'm just asking.
Well, we're in challengers. You can challenge me, but
that's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that is from our side of the counter. Mm-hmm. That is again another line you have to walk where you want to be friendly,
right?
But you don't want to be overly friendly,
right?
And there have been instances where, and I have a lot of good friends that I've gotten from being a comics retailer.
Sure.
But then there are other people that think that when I would be the first to say no.
I think I know I think we have some of those folks in common.
Sure.
We've had conversations about that.
But but I mean, at the same time, like I used to using Facebook as an example, which I hate to do for anything because I lament the fact that I'm on it, but I'm on it because we have a store page and you had to have, anyway, that's history.
I get you.
There was a point where if any customer friend requested me, I felt obligated to accept.
Right.
I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, because it's not, you can engage with the store page, not me. And I've recently gone through and just dropped a bunch of people, including people that shop here, because we're not going to hang out. We're not going to be, and we don't have to, and that shouldn't diminish the relationship.
Right. Different relationships manifest in different ways, and it's not I don't know. We think of everything in such a binary way. Like, it's not a question of valuation. I think to answer your question, like, I'm always happy to make like friends who I can hang out with. Yeah. That's something that I want to do. I'm not always great about getting back to them, as my friends will tell you.
You also have deadlines.
Right. But like, I value relationships and I value being close to people, so that's important. But there is also, like, I've talked about how, like, part of my whatever swirling mass of like ideas I build my worldview out of, one of the things that is really important to me is a sense of being welcome and a sense of intimacy, and not in like kind of not in a sexy way.
Right?
Not,
no.
Obviously,
I didn't think that's what you meant at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but also, and not in like a sort of like kind of creepy like, hey, tell me how you really feel kind of way, right? Not in a like a creepy high school guidance counselor way, but in a like, I want people to feel like they are welcome around me, and that's something that I take to shows.
I've never seen you not be that way.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
And I mean, like most of our interactions are in professional capacity.
Yes.
As professional as any of this really is.
Right.
But, you know, at a point where we're both working.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've never not, yeah. But I don't in any way assume that is an act, or that's not how you are outside of that.
And that's part of, like, I think that's part of the thing, is that, like, you and I have hung out outside of work before, in, like, for one, like, in one way or another. But, like...
And we will again, Zach.
And we will, of course. But, like... Even if we didn't, I wouldn't want you and I to be interacting in a way that was any significantly different.
Sure.
Like, and that's part of what it is. There, like, Your question was about like where do you draw the line between the people who you don't want to spend time with and the people that you do, and there are people who, for whatever reason, I just don't want to spend time with. Like, I'm not a saint, and I do draw that line, but I don't want people to feel when they're interacting with me, professionally or otherwise, like I don't think that they're worth my time. Even, and this is crucial, at times when I do think that.
Are you sure you're not a retailer? Are you sure you haven't been on this side of the counter?
I mean, I did spend a lot of my 20s working like at a Blick Art Materials.
Okay,
right.
Sure.
Like,
oh man,
yeah.
There's a lot of similar, not clientele, but personalities that we would deal with.
Exactly. Like, and I made a lot of book one while doing that job.
Nice.
So like that's a big, like, I'm having a hard time elucidating this, but. If people come up to me at shows, because I don't have lines. Maybe someday I will. I don't know. That would be good for business, certainly.
Sure.
Which is always positive. But at this point, like when I see people regularly, I know who they are, or at least I really try to. And again, like to restate it, a lot of these are parents bringing their kids, and their kids are usually very shy. So, like, especially with those young people, I want them to feel like I'm paying attention.
Sure.
Because, like, that's the age when it matters that someone, especially an adult you respect, for whatever reason, is listening to you and thinks that you matter. This is all, like, we're talking less about me and more about the person who I want to be.
Okay.
The person who I try to be.
But that's still you.
It's reflective, sure.
Yeah. Should I get the mirror back again?
Like that. I mean, that person is also like maybe a foot taller and in better shape. So, like, there's a whole like.
You're tall enough already.
I forget that. Part of it's the Hobbit hair.
All right, that's fine.
But
I literally have lost an inch the last couple of years.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird because there are friends of mine who are now taller than me that I think of as short in my head. And now I'm shorter than them.
I have a lot of friends who I think, most people actually I think of as taller than me.
Really?
But almost all of them are shorter. It's weird. Part of it is that I grew up in a family of tall people. And like they're all either taller than me or like match my height. I don't know, like I think what I'm trying to say is that like when I go to shows, the way that I have found makes doing this sustainable for me, like I don't have Kel's business acumen. Mm-hmm. I've got some business acumen, but I don't have hers. I don't have like any number of people. Like let's say Ali Cantarella. I don't have Ali Cantarella's social media game, and I don't have like the strident positions and opinions of like. Do you know who DJ Kirkland is yet?
Yeah.
All right. I don't have DJ's strident need to say something, which I immensely respect, but. What I do have is an ability to connect with people one-on-one. That's the tool that I have, both to make sales, but also just to survive this experience. Like, everybody deals with this stuff in a different way, and for a lot of people, it's kind of building a black box around the inside of themselves so they can get through the day. And
sure.
If that's what it takes, that's what you do. The way I've found has gotten me through the last few years has been an ability to make really personal connections with people in very short order. And hopefully, in the cases of some people, and I'm pointing to you now and others, to maintain that over time.
I was going to say, there's no one else to point to. It's just me. What do you mean others?
Yes.
But no, I know what you mean.
Like, just like, that's the way that I have found works for me, is like finding a level of connection with people. It doesn't always do exactly what I want. It's not the kind of thing that necessarily makes you super, like, I keep coming back to fame because it's a way to make money.
Right.
But, like, it's not the kind of thing that always necessarily makes you a ton of money, but it is how I keep my energy up so I can keep doing this. So I don't come out to shows or to signings and get exhausted and go home and wonder why I'm still doing it. Because there are so many other reasons why I wonder why I'm still doing it. And those reasons will always be there because this is a hard job and it's a hard industry to be in. But so if I can't find a way to make that bearable by liking people and by telling them that I like them,
that'd just be one more reason to not do this.
Exactly. It took me a while to get there, but I think that's my point.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think that this went in completely different directions than both of us thought it was going to.
Yes.
I'll be honest, I didn't come prepared. I didn't come not prepared, but I didn't come with any set questions or anything because we've talked
a lot,
mm-hmm. and you've been on the podcast before, so I didn't want to retread anything.
Sure.
But also, I know that you are more than capable of handling your half of a conversation, and I knew we would get to places. I think we talked about a lot of great stuff.
We did.
It went a lot deeper than most of these episodes ever really go. But I mean, that I think is a testament to you as a human being and to your creative drive. I'm
not great with compliments, but I appreciate all of that.
There you go.
It's a pleasure being on the show. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure the listener knows that, but if they didn't, they should. Yeah.
And this show, by the way, is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Network here in Chicago. And lately I've been deliberately butchering that sentence and trying to get the point across by using all different words. But for this one, I thought we would definitely just cut to the point and say it the way it's supposed to be said.
Right.
You can do all the normal podcast things of subscribe, rate, review, do that kind of stuff. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/challengers. Do you have a Patreon?
I don't.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You can, of course, tune in next week and next episode, and you can meet Zach at Challengers on Wednesday, August 8th for many, many hours.
Yes, I'll be here.
And not only will we have the brand new Volume 2 of Junior Braves of the Apocalypse in softcover and hardcover, we will also have Volume 1 in softcover and hardcover.
That is correct.
And in the meantime, thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.